Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Wait a minute. I'm emailing my questions and comments. I actually am here. Yeah, there, okay. Just something I want to remind myself to talk to you about. There. Okay. Happy Monday. Happy spring. And it's the 9th of April, ladies and gentlemen. There is a lot of, as usual, news happening, and some of it horrific. I suggest Syria. And the president who wanted to pull out just the other day, now being bellicose and talking about striking them in some manner. And, of course, this is the first day on the job for one national security advisor named Bolton. And he likes nothing more than making war. So, I don't know. Coherence is something that is not to be seen in the current administration. There's no coherence, so it depends on what day it is, what side of the bed he got up on. So, and this is the, of course, unsettling, dangerous aspect of living in his world. Somebody, actually, it was Pittsburgh's own Howard Feynman, who is a Washington journalist, who I think tweeted something today that got me thinking. And he said that one of the things that concerned people about Trump's bromance with Vladimir Putin was that if push ever came to shove and Trump had to show that he was independent of the Russian president, that a great way of doing that would be war. A war in which Putin was on the other side. And I hate to tell you, but Syria looks like it might foot the bill for that. In fact, the president heard to say something even vaguely negative about Vladimir Putin in regard to this. So who knows? Hang on to your seats. That's all I'm suggesting. And meanwhile, we just wait. We powerless peons. I've got a lot of stuff here to talk to you about. None of it is huge, but none of it is particularly upsetting either. So it could be a sort of a good kind of a show in which we, after my initial comments, pretty much disregard the chaos in Washington and look to other stories. Who was it who called? Somebody called, I think, last week, or maybe the week before, and said it was an alert for candy lovers that the Clark Bar, which has obviously a Pittsburgh connection, and Necco wafers, and those stupid little Halloween candies, the heart-shaped ones with like "Be Mine" and stuff like that written on them, that they were in true danger. And the Wall Street Journal reported on this today, so I have a little more information, and I just want to share it with you. That is, our caller was absolutely correct. It's a huge danger, and in fact, the company that makes those candies has said that it would close operations next month if nobody bought the company. And I guess nobody is looking like they are going to buy the company. And they make Necco, Mary Jane's, Clark bars, squirrel nut zippers, and those heart-shaped things that are called sweethearts. The Wall Street Journal particularly focuses on Necco wafers, those quarter-sized, chalky, awful thingamajigs in a little wrapping. But you know that they have been around, let me get the date right, since 1847. Necco wafers have been manufactured since 1847. And the company that I guess now owns Clark as well, is called New England Confectionery Company, and that is the outfit that is saying it will go out of business. It is, I mean, this is a historic demise if it happens, because this particular company is the oldest continually operating candy company in the United States. I don't know, after they go, maybe Hershey will be next. I don't know. I mean, will rise to being the oldest continually operating. But apparently the news of this potential demise has caused panic to break out in certain circles, so that people are trying to scarf up all the Necco wafers they can get their hands on, because they will be the last Necco wafers. The Wall Street Journal quotes a guy from McKeesport, who is the president of a a company called Candy Favorites. It's a wholesaler. And he says all weekend his phone was ringing off the hook from people pleading with him. People who wanted to buy his entire inventory. So people see, the marketplace, as we learned, just rudimentary stuff about the marketplace is things have greater value when they become more scarce, if there is a demand. So all of a sudden, I mean, Necco wafers is like rivaling Bitcoin in like people wanting to glom onto them, because it could well be it's the end of an era. But listen to this history of Necco. They were Union and, no, not Confederate, Union soldiers, because this was a New England outfit. Union soldiers carried Necco wafers into battle. In World War I, American, and World War II, American GIs carried Necco wafers because they don't get old, because they sort of are already, I mean, if you've ever tasted them, they seem like stale. They seem like something that was, dug up somewhere and has gone hard, but still has a little bit of flavor. So they don't get old. They're perfect to carry. In fact, not just GIs, not just Civil War soldiers carried them, but Admiral Richard Byrd, of historic note, took 2.5, I find this impossible to believe, but it's right here in the Wall Street Journal, took 2.5 tons of Necco wafers on his 2-year exploration of the South Pole in the 1930s. Not only because they could pass as food, but also they were used sort of like beads were used by, the first settlers here in on the continent to barter with the natives. They were used to hand out to the Inuits that were encountered and were important to the expedition. So, Necco wafers, who knew? It says right here, and maybe some of you Catholics will acknowledge this because it makes perfect sense, that Catholic kids often playing priest would, of course, use Necco wafers as communion wafers. And here's another great thing. I said they were quarter size. Well, they really are. And apparently, it used to be in those old toll booths where you would throw in, you could throw in a Necco wafer, and a lot of machines, before I guess they got wise to it, would count it as a quarter. So there were often lots of Necco wafers found in toll booth baskets. Just saying. Who knew? But it says here that I don't know how many of you are like aficionados of Necco wafers, but it says here, and I don't disagree, that the flavors of Necco wafers have been described as tropical drywall and plaster surprise, among others. It's just awful, but awful's okay. I've eaten more than one or two in my lifetime. But of all the candies on this chopping block that'll go down if nobody buys up the New England Confectionery Company, Clark bars are the ones that hit closest to home and also are the best of the lot. I mean, Clark bars are good. So you might want to scarf some of those babies up because they're on very dangerous footing. One wholesaler said he got a customer who wanted to barter for the company's entire stock of Necco wafers. He was willing to give the company his 2003 Honda Accord for whatever Necco wafers they have. And he said, please say yes. They didn't. And they had a limit of only 2 boxes. All he got, this guy who was willing to give his car, got 2 boxes. Boxes, not rolls. 2 boxes of Necco wafers he did get, because that was as much as they were letting any one person get. So I just wanted to tell you, you heard it first on this program, but that was because one of you alerted us, and that's just a little more information about it. Sad. Something else that's going the way of perhaps Necco wafers, and I don't think any of us will miss it, and some of you have already noted it, it is having to sign on when making a credit card purchase. You ain't going to have to. Next month, all the major cards, MasterCard, Visa, American Express, Discover, will stop requiring, I guess before the month's out, they're going to, in a week or so, will not require your John Henry to complete a purchase, no matter the price. Because now, I mean, you can see that they've been heading in that direction. You go into some stores, if it's under $25, they say, go. Under $50, who cares? And they say the signature is just a waste of time. It is BS. People have shown that you can write Mickey Mouse. You can, write, Charles Manson, whatever. You write whatever you want. Nobody pays any attention at all, except, correct me if I'm wrong, state store clerks. Because very recently I have been asked to show my driver's license. And or because the signature on the back of my card is sort of faded, and where they ask for the card and they look and they look and they look, and I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? Nobody does this anymore, but the state store system does. And I've marveled over the years at how some people sign anyway. I mean, some people's signatures are nothing more than like, or blah, blah, blah. Chicken scratch. Do you do that? I mean, it bears no one could conceivably read whatever that so-called signature is. And I've noticed that and thought, well, then what's the point? And for that matter, why am I so, like it's a penmanship drill? Lynn Cullen. I mean, mine looks, it's legible. I've even got good at doing it with my finger. Remember the first time you had to do that? So none of that is going to be necessary anymore. And I'm sure we'll get annoyed by any retailer who does continue to ask for our signature. The other thing I don't like about having to do a signature is germs. I'm not that I'm a total germaphobe, but during this last flu season, when everybody seemed to suggest it was a killer flu and it was awful and horrible, I was so not wanting to get that flu that I began looking at everything like having to sign on with one of those things that everybody, death-defying. So, I don't know. Anyway, just saying, it's going to be gone, just like the Necco wafer. Give it up. Changes. Constant. We have a call. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All I was going to say is I don't believe that with Necco and Clark. I remember a while back here when Hostess, you weren't going to get their cupcakes and Twinkies and all that. My God, they got all their selections way back. So somebody's going to make them. Somebody's going to do it. They'll still be there, guaranteed.
I don't know.
They say that about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but
I think so.
Twinkies,
You're dead wrong, Lynn.
All right, Twinkies though are different than Necco wafers. I think Twinkies have a stronger base. Don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, Necco wafers aren't the greatest.
I mean, they're
all right.
They're like, Pepto-Bismol tablets. I mean, they're like,
yeah, they're not.
It's like colored chalk.
The Clark bars, they got a ton of sugar in them, so.
Well, of course, that's the idea. But
I mean, they're one of the sweetest ones, I think.
Clark, maybe.
I like them, but I don't eat them that much.
No, I don't either. That's good. But I think Necco's gone. I mean, I'm sorry. I think
it might be.
I mean, it's not a huge loss.
I thought they were made in another country, to be honest with you. I don't know why I thought they were made in England.
New England. New England.
Oh, okay.
Okay? That's in America. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's
right.
Strange, but it is.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I got.
Okay,
Goodbye.
That's fine. See ya.
We'll see ya.
Yeah.
Okay, see ya.
Bye. So, yeah, England and New England reminds me of one of my stories. It's a quickie about this is early in the days of my talk radio career. And I had a producer who would be booking guests for me. It was a 3-hour daily show and, doing this, doing that. And I just have 2 stories about her, but one which the caller made me think of, is one day she said to me, she's a nice person. She said, Lynn, do you know how I get hold of the international operator? And I said, no, what do you need an international operator for? And she said, I've got to call New Mexico. I want to tell you, this was a Penn State graduate. I'm just saying. She had a college degree. I want to call New Mexico. And the same producer also said to me once breathlessly, we've got to gear up because next week is the centennial of the end of World War II. And I said, no, it's not. No, it's not. She said, yes, it is. I mean, she doubled down. Yes, it is. I said, no, it's not. I mean, I don't know what was it the 50th? I don't know what she was thinking. But obviously, the centennial of the end of World War II would be what? It hasn't even happened yet. And this was a long time ago, but jeez. Oh, yeah. Hey, speaking of that, did you watch the Paterno thing? Speaking of Penn State, I saw most of it. I think I missed the first half hour. And I thought it was awful. I just thought it was slow and ponderous. And I thought Paterno came off looking like sort of an idiot. I mean, maybe he was. I don't know. I mean, just sort of a totally one-dimensional character whose life was football, and his crime was that he just his head didn't take in information that didn't have to do with football. So if someone like McQueary told him that Sandusky was, fondling or whatever he said, little boys in the locker room. I mean, it didn't, I don't know. I thought it was awful, which surprised me because Barry Levinson is a really good director. Al Pacino, obviously, is a Academy Award-winning actor, and I guess he was, I don't know. I thought it was bad. And if you're a real Penn State fan, you would not have liked it. I'm not a Penn State fan. I don't care one way or the other, but it sure made the folks in Happy Valley look like a bunch of shallow rabble, I would say. And maybe there's some truth in that too. I don't know, just saying. So, yeah, so the credit card signature is toast. In fact, the New York Times reports that the odds are you are not going to be asked to sign anything except maybe when you buy a house or buy a car or maybe something at the bank. I think banks will still, won't they, at some point ask for your signature? I don't know. They said it'll be pretty much a thing of the past. And it's all because signatures we're always about security. Well, that's laughable because they don't in any way secure a dang thing. I mean, and the fact that people don't check them, so they're gone. And if you think about it, I don't think a lot of young people hardly can sign their name because they don't know cursive. I mean, can a signature? I guess a signature could be an X, and it can be printed, but cursive is gone, and cursive is how you do a signature, ain't it? I don't know. Just saying. All right, as I said, I don't have much of anything today. God, there was this thing on Twitter that I saw that so enraged me this weekend. And that's what I was sending to myself when the show began, because it turns out the New York Times has done a piece on it. Philomena, hang on here. Philomena says, I always like Necco wafers, especially the chocolate ones, which are available as an entire roll. but they're harder to find. Regarding using them for playing communion, we used to use flying saucers with the tiny candy beads inside. They were closer to the taste of the actual communion wafer. And that was candy? Flying saucer? I don't know from flying saucers. I listen to your show every day and enjoy it. Thank you, Philomena. I appreciate that. I have to tell you, as a kid, I once took communion. I know that's a bad thing. It was a dare. I mean, I lived in a totally Catholic town, Green Bay, and a friend dared me. And so I said, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do. And he said, just go up there and stick out your tongue. So I did it. I did do it once, and I'm sorry. But I'm willing to bet a lot of people take communion who shouldn't, including a lot of Catholics, right? I mean, don't follow the letter of the law. And I'll tell you another sacrilegious thing that has to do with... have I ever told you? I don't like to... Because I adored this guy, Paul Long, the old-time anchor, television anchor here in Pittsburgh, who once famously was... his picture was shown on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson because Carson couldn't believe that he was an anchor because it was this big, bald bulldog of a guy. And, this was at the time already that anchors were always, had hair and airbrush. And so I guess at one point he showed Paul's picture. But Paul was a absolutely rock-ribbed atheist. And he smoked these big, huge cigars. And on Ash Wednesday, I hate to tell you this, because the first time I saw him do it, I was stunned. You're ahead of me here, right? Because people would come to work in the newsroom with the ashes on their forehead, and I think even would be on TV. Yeah, are they still? Yeah, with ashes on their forehead. And Paul would, take the butt of his and every time, every Ash Wednesday, and I loved him, but I remember saying, Paul, that's like really not nice. Whatever. Anyway, so that's worse than me taking communion, right? Absolutely. We got a call. Hi, caller.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike in D.C.
Mike, hi.
I do not want to waste my call on this, but I can't stop myself from asking. Who in their right mind, what kind of twisted childhood did you have that you played priest?
I didn't.
Played priest?
Well, didn't you play doctor? Doctor, priest?
No! I was raised Catholic, and all my friends were Catholic. No one ever played priest. And you walk up to your friend and stick out their tongue, and they put, oh my God, how stupid is that?
Well, but wait.
Never.
Obviously, people, because a priest was a major authority figure, and kids like to dress up and pretend they're major authority. Yeah, you pretend you're teacher. I didn't do it, but obviously some people did.
Well, I must have had a much more interesting childhood because nothing sounds stupider to me than playing priest.
What? You could do confessions? I mean, I think priest it'd be like, yeah, it'd be fun. No?
You'd have to convince you. Oh, my gosh, no, that's just dumb. That's dumb.
Well, I'll tell
from a Catholic boy, that's dumb.
So you never even had the slightest inclination to say, hey, let's play priest.
Hey, my friends, let's all of you be parishioners, and I'm going to be the priest. My friends would say, no, let's go ride bikes. Let's go swimming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember that. Well, I don't know. Did girls play nuns? I don't know. You didn't play at being somebody ever? An authority figure?
No, I don't remember.
Well, you played cops and robbers, didn't you? Or
Yeah,
cowboys
but
and
you were
Indians.
doing something.
Oh, it
Right,
was
you
physical.
were doing something. You were shooting them. They were shooting you. What's the priest do?
He
What do
sticks
kids-
wafers
what's the kid who's
on
not
you.
the priest get to do?
He sticks wafers on your tongue.
It's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
And he listens
And
to
if
all
I'm
the...
offending anyone, I'm sorry, but I've never heard of anything so ridiculous.
Okay. All right. Hey, listen, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and I appreciate it. And this does not constitute your call of the week. I will give you absolution, okay, in my priestly
thank
role.
You
Yes.
Forgive me, Lynn, for I mistake.
Yes,
I'll start
okay.
off the next song, man.
Fine. Go say a Hail Mary and get out of here. Okay. Bye. Thomas in Austin, Texas says, or Tom, let's not get so serious here. Tom in Austin, Texas says, thanks for the Necco story. I live north of Boston in Revere, which is where the factory is. Yeah, it's right in the Wall Street Journal. It's in Revere, Massachusetts. Geez, I wonder how the town got that name. Live north of Boston in Revere, past the Necco factory daily. Well, it ain't gone yet, but it's it's teetering. It is teetering. Barbara has sent me a picture I'd just as soon not have seen. Thank you. It's a picture of, who is that? Mick Mulvaney with ashes on his forehead. Well, okay. I don't think I saw anybody on Ash Wednesday this year with ashes on. Is that starting to... I mean, it really used to be in my hometown of Green Bay and certainly here in Pittsburgh a long time ago that everybody seemed to have them. It's no wonder, maybe even Paul Long wanted to get in on the... I don't know. Okay, so this thing I wanted to tell you about when I interrupted myself to bring you Philomena's communion candy. So there you go. Philomena played. She did priest. She just didn't use Necco wafers. She used flying saucers, whatever they are. Okay, so this shows how out of it I am in certain popular culture venues. I did not know who Tony Robbins was. Do you guys know who Tony Robbins is? I wouldn't recognize him. I'm looking at a picture of him now. I never saw this guy in my life. Having seen him, I would never want to. But Tony Robbins is... I had to look him up on Google. He's very rich, I would think, because he's one of these... It's sort of like the lay version, the secular version of these televangelists, who take people's money, in a nefarious way by suggesting they're offering them some kind of salvation, right? Well, Tony Robbins is a life coach, and he, I guess, has this huge empire where people pay sometimes thousands of dollars to listen to him speak and to tell them how to have a better life. I mean, it just gives me the creeps, frankly. So I didn't know from any of this. Of course, California-based, all this kind of bull. But something got itself on the internet, as they say, a viral video, got loose. And I happened to see it and was, stunned by what I saw. This was a video from, I guess, his most recent big event where it looked like an arena almost, like he filled up. I mean, it was this huge, huge, huge audience. You couldn't see to the end of the audience. It was so big. And he's walking around with I think he had like a headset on and doing what, televangelists and the secular types do. And then he lit into the #MeToo movement and said that women were using the MeToo movement to, and this is a quote, to try to get significance, and by attacking and destroying someone else. And I thought, what? And some extraordinarily brave woman in the audience stood up and said, I think you're mischaracterizing the movement. And he went back at her in a way. This is the part I found so unbelievably astonishing, and a classic kind of #MeToo moment. This guy is huge. I looked him up on Google. He's 6 feet 7 inches. He's a big, bruising guy. And this woman was, I don't know, 5'5". I don't know what she was. She's asking the question, and in front of these thousands of people, he comes at her physically. He wasn't just disagreeing with her. He came at her physically. And actually started, my memory is started sort of like almost pushing her, so that she ended up having to back away. He was backing away, and at one point she tried to push back a little, and he said, "You're pushing back." And it was the most unbelievable act of clear physical intimidation by a big, big, big man of an uppity little female. And that's one of the reasons it went viral. Plus, when he started arguing with her, he said things that were just mind-blowing. He said he knew some guy who, I'm seeing if the New York Times actually wrote what he said. No. He said that the MeToo movement was destroying people's lives. He had praise for Steve Wynn, one of the guys who's been taken down, who built up Las Vegas and owns a lot of the casinos there. What a great guy he is. And then he said that he knows a guy who was hiring for his company, and he interviewed some candidates, one of whom was a very, very qualified woman, but she was beautiful. And he said, Tony Robbins, and he didn't hire that beautiful, qualified woman because he didn't want, her around in his business. And I thought, what the hell is he saying? What? He didn't want to hire her because he wouldn't be able to keep his hands off her? He didn't want to hire her because somebody else might not? I didn't even understand what he was saying. And it was I was just stunned. It made me have to look up, and now I know who Tony Robbins is. I wish I didn't. And the reason, and what, big shock, huh? The headline in the business section of the New York Times is Tony Robbins apologizes for saying women use MeToo to gain significance. What he said struck me as not the most outrageous thing that was on that tape. It was his physical intimidation of that woman. And so this guy, he's doing damage control today. There were a ton of women in that audience, And the article says, I didn't see it on the tape that I saw because it was just a snippet, that people in the audience began booing him, what he said. And these are people who obviously love him and were willing to pay a lot of money to come and get his wisdom. And he put out this mealy I mean, how do these people turn on a dime and all of a sudden they just, whatever that was that we saw was exactly what he was thinking. And then 2 days later, because all of a sudden his livelihood is endangered, he comes out and says this: "My comments failed to reflect the respect I have for the MeToo movement." Well, yeah, I guess so. That's like a total reversal. So was he lying then? I mean, he had respect for the MeToo movement? Yeah, his comments did fail to show that because they were totally antithetical to any respect for the movement. So he goes on, "Let me clearly say that I agree with the movement. And on and on and on. Wow. Yeah, Tony. Big boy. Taken down by a little woman, huh?" Laura writes, "I agree with the caller that playing priest is ridiculous." Oh, but no, wait. She says ridiculous to those of us not Catholic. But I thought he was Catholic. Yeah. He was talking as a Catholic. He couldn't imagine playing it. Necco chocolate wafers. Oh, she's agreeing with Philomena. Necco chocolate wafers are the best. You know what they tasted like? Do you remember? How old are you? I don't know if you had to do this. When I was in grade school, so this is the 50s, not only did we do duck and cover drills in case the Russians decided to destroy us, but I think once a month they passed out these little chocolate tasting wafers, and we all had to eat them. But they were not candy, but I liked them. They made them chocolate so the kids would eat them. They were iodine pills to prevent us from getting goiters. Did any of you have to do that in public school? I just remembered that. Because when I thought of a chocolate wafer, I could only think of the goiter pills that we all look forward to. And did you guys have to do that? Why did we? Anyway, and Laura says, Necco chocolate are the best. Before they made the rolls of chocolate, we used to try to get the rolls that had more chocolate than others. I hated when there was no chocolate in a roll. Oh, that would ruin your day. I know, it would. Chris writes, usually every year Stacy Smith on KDKA, he's the anchor on one of the stations here in Pittsburgh, will have ashes on his forehead when doing the noon news. Yeah. I think, still. So there's somebody who's still. Yeah. And Chris also writes, I hate to admit it, but I love the chocolate Necco wafers. Well, geez, maybe then they should just do the well, the whole company's going down. The pink and white ones taste disgusting. I'll have to make a run on those chocolate wafers. They do make rolls of just chocolate in case you're got lots of luck. That's all I can say. Now, I can think of 2 retro candy stores that I know of. There's one in the Strip. I bet they're sold out. I don't know. You could try them. And the other, there's one in Sewickley. Just saying. That carry, all the old candies. And Chris says, sorry to say, but I like the Paterno movie. I thought Pacino did an excellent job. Yeah, maybe he did, but I just found Paterno so dull. A character that I thought, I mean, it was just, I don't know, wasn't in my... I think Paterno was portrayed as a feeble old man who was just out of touch. Yeah, I think he was too. I mean, the fact that he sat there at one point and actually looked up and asked his family. He was trying to read some of the evidence. And in one of the cases, I guess, and he said, what is sodomy? And I believe an old-time 84-year-old Catholic guy wouldn't be quite clear what it was. I agree. And Chris says he was so zoned into football only that he was just clueless. And I think that's what they seem to suggest. It was sad. But he did understand that he'd built he was so proud of what he had built and this sense of who he was, a good man. And he realized that as he neared the end, and he didn't know that he wasn't going to be alive in 2 months, that this thing had cost him everything. Not just because he lost the job, but because, I don't know. It's sad in a way. I was never a fan of Paterno. He was a big Nixon supporter, I remember. And the Republicans were always after him to run in some way, be a vice presidential candidate or something like that. God. Ray writes, Lynn, Mike from D.C., as much as I normally enjoy his calls, is hardly a voice of typical Catholic experiences. Take that, Mike. I guess Ray is a very Catholic person, so, okay, here we go. All derisive chortling aside. Oh, that is a good chortling. All derisive chortling aside, Catholics of a certain age who were required to learn the rubrics and responses of a Latin Mass and then the transition post-Vatican II often would practice them as a sort of playtime. It was no more silly than rehearsing any performance you were to be tested on. Huh. Well, you were very serious Catholic. I married a very serious Catholic who bemoaned the end of the Catholic Mass, the Latin Mass, excuse me. Also, the Ash Wednesday fake ashes is much less sacrilegious than receiving communion. If the receiving of communion was meant as a mockery in the way, I don't think it was a mockery that I was into. I just wanted to pull it off. I wasn't mocking. I was actually terrified. Innocent participation in the Eucharist is not uncommon. Okay. Please consider, says Ray, having your brilliant brother on to discuss his sense of disgust in our current social disorder. I think his book was prophetic of our time. For those of you who don't know, my brother has written a number of books, one of which is called The Anatomy of Disgust. And it is, it's looking into the human emotion of disgust. And consequently, it's a little unseemly. Because the things that disgusted us are things that disgust are things that people don't talk about. I mean, it has a lot to do with, bodily excretions and, but my brother just loves, wandering into, look at the underside of humanity. So his books are on disgust and humiliation and stuff like that, and never mind that he's a professor in the law school at the University of Michigan. What any of that has to do with anything, I don't know. My brilliant brother, huh? Well, okay. He doesn't feel brilliant anymore. He's having trouble growing old, which is why he wrote a book called Losing It. And it was about losing brain cells, losing his sharpness, losing how when you get old, you're just not who you were. And for him, it's just a very painful diminishment. And I keep telling him, get behind it, reconfigure yourself, blah, 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 but he's not inclined to do that. I mean, if you think about it, losing it is pretty much what growing old is. I mean, you lose your hair, you lose height, you lose brain cells, you lose collagen, you lose your hearing, you lose sometimes your sight, you lose your sense of... My mother was telling me, I can't taste anything anymore. Your senses go. You lose your... So it's like this slow diminishment of what we think of as, ourselves. That's why my dad, when he had a very long decline, years, and I thought he's a wordsmith. It's why I think I care about words so much, but he always used words very carefully. So when I would see him, I would say, hi, Dad, how are you? And in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of his life, he always said the same thing in response to that. And it was a true statement. Hi, Dad, how are you? Diminished was always the response, which was a statement of fact in many ways. Diminished. God. And people wonder why I'm depressed. I live with these people. Chris writes, there's an old candy store that pretty much sells every candy ever made in North Huntington off of Route 30. Yeah, how are you going to get to North Huntington now? I'm just asking. For those of you who don't know, you get to North Huntington from Pittsburgh on Route 30. And guess what happened over the weekend? A big hunk of Route 30 collapsed into a valley. It just, it went down. And there's no way, I don't even know. How would you even get to, I don't know what the alternative route there is. What would you do? Well, I don't have to. So anyway, yeah, unless you're off of Route 30 behind Kenny Ross Chevrolet called Luehm, Luehm Candy Company. I bet they're getting a run. Oh, Barbara says, sending me the picture of Mick Mulvaney with ashes. She said, my point was, I thought his name was Mike. It is? Was hypocrites displaying their ashes. And she said, already under Mulvaney, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is no longer about protecting consumers. Well, yes, but that's true. Has dropped a new regulation. Has dropped a regulation to rein in payday lenders. I mean, these people are shameless. He has dropped an investigation of another payday lender, or the Bureau did while he was running it. That lender actually contributed to his campaign. Then there's another case where he dropped this lawsuit that the Bureau was bringing against what's been alleged to be this sort of loan shark online operation that was charging 950% interest rates. So you add all this up and you're seeing a lot of cases of enforcement actions and regulations against aggressive high-interest lenders that are basically being thrown out the window because this is Trump's government. Unbelievable. Disgusting. So you're saying he thinks he's a good Catholic? Yeah. Okay. God, where'd the show go? Did I not come in? I came in and I told Amy, our new producer, by the way, who's wonderful. I told Amy, I got nothing. And I haven't even gotten through half of my nothing. But I want to get this in. So the hot movie right now is this movie called A Quiet Place, which is a horror movie, which means I doubt that I'll have the nerve to see it because I don't like getting scared. I'm scared enough. A Quiet Place. And in the movie, I mean, there's a monster or something that's going to kill you, and it if you make a sound, it locates you. So the movie, apparently, unlike most movies now, which deaden your eardrums, this movie is silent, essentially, a lot of the time, which, except for the heart's pounding, right? And nearly dialogue-free. It has received rapturous reviews. I'm very happy for the director and star, who is John Krasinski, who's a nice guy. He's tried to make he did make two other movies, both of which were total failures, one of which he filmed here about fracking. You know, it was talking about what happens in a community when the frackers come around and start pitting neighbor against neighbor in terms of buying off their the rights to their land. And I had the wonderful opportunity to meet him and his wife, Emily Blunt, who is probably better known because she's an actress who's gotten a lot of acclaim. I guess they were here and they were making that movie. You know, that time I told you, why am I saying this? I mean, this is bullshit. But I really like him. And I'm glad he's got a hit. They got a hit on their hands. But what I wanted to say was, turns out this movie is so quiet that people who are going to it are having an experience in the theater a movie theater that they haven't had ever. Which adds to the power of the movie, which is that the place goes absolutely quiet. So, you know what's happening? People are afraid to eat their popcorn. The sales of popcorn and anything else, somebody put on Twitter, God, every time there was a slight bit of dialogue, I started throwing popcorn in my mouth. Because otherwise, if you made a crunch or something, you were literally disturbing the entire audience. So I'm just saying, if you go see this movie, don't think of getting popcorn because you're not going to be able to enjoy it. I just thought you might want to know that. I'd sort of like to see it, but I don't know. So anyway, I got a minute or two left. So what I was saying is the reason I got to meet him, and I told you guys this at the time, God, how many years ago was that? Is that I was asked, and I don't remember why or how, I was asked to be part of a very secret videotaping, that was done at the studios of WQED, the public station. And I was told not to tell anybody about it because there was concern that they didn't want any media there. And it turns out it was because all of these stars were there. Krasinski, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Frances McDormand. I'm trying to think, who else was there? There was just a bunch of big stars, and we were all there, and I did what they did. We all had certain little speeches that real Americans had made at certain times in history, and we were just there to stand on a stage and read the speech in front of an invited audience. And this was for some project that Matt Damon is mostly behind. And it's about making an oral history of real Americans and their speeches. And anytime he sees an opportunity to grab, I guess there were 3 movies being made at the time. Damon was in here for one. Frances McDormand was here for another one. And Blunt and Krasinski were here. And so he just got them all together. And somehow they coordinated and got some local people also to read. And I was one of the lucky ones. So I mean, there I was sitting in the green room with Frances McDormand and Emily Blunt, and we were all just doing the same thing. It was pretty amazing, pretty heady stuff. It was. I was just blown away by it. It really was. So it was fun. And I do have a DVD of it, although I guess I'm not supposed to. It was never supposed to be. I'm not quite clear about why, but I do have a raw video of all of us doing our things. Anyway, I guess that's it. So, but if you go see the movie, sorry, no popcorn. I'm just saying you don't want to be the one. You don't want to be the one. All right, that's it. Unbelievable. I had nothing, and the show went so fast. So I'll see you tomorrow. My sister tomorrow. Wednesday we have another guest. Thursday we have Mrs. Rogers, Joanne Rogers, coming on this very big year for Mr. Rogers, the 50th anniversary of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And so Joanne will be joining us, and she's just wonderful. So I'm looking forward to having her here. See ya. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.